United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Gretchen Topping Corner House at Sangatonic LLC. We have a resolution to set a public hearing for August 9th. Let's see if we can find that. So I know I saw it, just the first page.
If you want to read the first page on planning.
Oh,
It's there.
okay. Make a resolution whereas Gretchen Topping, should I read all this or do I just deem it read?
You can deem it read into the minutes, and I will put them in the minutes.
Okay, let's
The
deem this
important
read.
stuff is the now therefore.
Now therefore, the village clerk is authorized and directed to post and publish the notice of the public hearing in the form annexed, and this matter shall be considered at a public hearing on August 9th, 2023 at 3 p.m. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Rich Warren. How are you?
Oh,
Hi. So I prepared at the request of Tony Tohill, a pre-application report for Gretchen Topping, and it's in draft. And my understanding is, this application's been around since 2020, and it's really been non-controversial from the public's point of view. And with the interest in trying to get this thing resolved, because there is a acquisition of development rights with the town, I think the intention would be to have the public hearing at your next meeting and then close the public hearing and adopt a pre-application report. The pre-application report is to include public hearing comments. So, but because the intention is to have a public hearing and adopt a report at the same time, I prepared a draft, which I sent to Rhodey. It's about 6 pages and it's marked draft. You guys should all get a copy of it. It shouldn't be circulated to the public yet because it's not a formal report, but this is a report of the board. It's not a report from me. I'm actually a scrivener for the board in order to produce a pre-application report that you guys would adopt. So what I would ask is that in the interim between now and the next month, if the board members could get a copy of that report, just review it in draft form and get back to me any comments that you might have regarding the report. I don't think you're going to have any, but this is your report, so you have the right to look at it and offer any comments. And then once we go through the public hearing, I've noted in the report that I'm anticipating that there's not going to be any adverse public comment relative to this application. So if there are, then as soon as we finish the public hearing, I'll have to make some changes to it, but I don't think we're going to. So I'm assuming that this report will be able to be adopted at that meeting, following the closing of the public hearing. But I would ask that Rhodey get you copies of this if she hasn't already gotten it. And then if any of the board members have any questions or if you have comments relative to it, if you could just get them back to me so I can incorporate those into these reports. So you'll have final reports to hopefully adopt following the close of the public hearing at your next meeting.
I do have that report prepared and I will forward it to the board.
Okay,
Those
great.
instructions.
Okay, great.
that's great. I appreciate you jumping in and explaining all that.
Yep. So any questions, people feel free to call me.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Subdivision application of 351 Bridge Lane LLC. Still waiting for them to pull details together. So
Yeah,
I'll make
and Bill, Rich, do you have any update on 351 Bridge Lane for the board? I've heard nothing.
I have not heard anything from John Tarbett or Dave Saskis. I know that they had some questions relative to how to develop the yield plan. I've spoken with them a couple of times about it. They were misreading how lot width gets measured on the properties in the plans. I told them how it is. I sent them sections of the code, but I haven't seen any drawings back from them. So I guess it's in their court right now.
Okay. Make a resolution to adjourn that application to the August 9th meeting. For a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, 194 Erica's Lane LLC. I think we have someone to present on that. Or I know that we didn't have all the details we needed. 194 Erica's Lane.
Yeah, I can speak about it if there's no one to present
Okay.
in the room with you guys. Okay, great. So
Yeah, here, but we provided our responses.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess there are some details, I guess, which they still are looking for.
I guess so, that's.
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
hey everybody,
Go
Kevin Peterman.
ahead.
Sure, sorry, Bill.
Thank you.
Kevin Peterman from LKMA as the village engineering consultant. We did receive the revised plans for 194 Erica's Lane, and for the most part, all of our comments were addressed with exception of one comment, and we'll get into that in 1 second. The revised design incurred just a few minor comments, and so if that hasn't been circulated yet, I'm sure it will be. Minor comments include discrepancy on the drainage tributary map area and the callouts for the drainage structures on the plan. A few typos here and there, mostly just minor clerical stuff, but we want to make sure that the plan is correct before we recommend for approval. Regarding the one comments that wasn't addressed, that's just pertaining to the dry wells in the area of the proposed addition. We would really strongly recommend that an effort be made to locate any existing dry wells in this area, just because it is getting so tight with all of the improvements that are happening. So, you know, there is a propane tank there, there's other drainage happening, there's the addition going on, and then you're putting in the pool on the other side and the patio. And so if you do find, you know, stormwater leaching pools in that area, it's not going to be entirely easy to route stormwater roof leaders. It's not going to be entirely easy to route the roof leaders from the existing residents to where they need to go. So the reason we're making this comment is just to make sure that it's being thought about in anticipation of what's going to happen with the extension. And with those comments, that's pretty much all we have to offer on 194 Erica's.
Mike. Good afternoon, Melissa Devon, County Environmental Associates. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. When we spoke to our engineer, he had told us that if there are any in that area, we'll remove them. And I did ask specifically at that question to the architect, and he said, we'll just extend the gutters and have the spout, and we'll go to the new, I think it says proposed dry well. So we are taking into account the new dry well, if there are any dry wells in that location. And it's on the plan.
So you have a proposed dry well for the addition, but you're not addressing any of the existing roof drainage that would be in, so where you're putting the addition, there could be.
My understanding is that dry well would incorporate both. That was a satisfactory too, if it had to replace any other storm, if there are any other dry wells in that location or a dry well in that location.
Okay, on the plans, there are no calculations or any sort of notes or language that would suggest that's how that was arrived at. So I don't really know how, how would the board know that that was your approach?
Okay, like I said, we went through point by point. We have a response letter that was prepared by the Rainer Group going point by point, and that's how they were addressing it. But maybe it wasn't clear enough, but that's why I'm trying to expound on it a little bit. That was the purpose of the new dry wells, to handle not just any dry wells that they have to be removed. It's also to address any minor additional drainage or runoff that might be incurred because of a small addition.
Right. Okay. I'm happy to speak with the engineer offline if he wants to discuss further, or if anything's unclear on the plans, I'm happy to discuss further. But that comment will be issued as part of our comments for this round.
Well, we received it. Thank you.
May I have a comment?
Who's speaking?
This
Hang on.
is Stephen Wang. I'm the architect for Erica's Lane. If I,
You are good, thank you.
Yep. Hi, everyone. And I'm I reviewed the drawings that the Rainer Group prepared, and they did take care to relocate the gas tank, as you can see, and we didn't want to go too far from the existing location, and we moved it around to the other side, which is clearly noted. And then the dry wells are also indicated. As for any calculation of flow, as you can see, it's a rather modest addition. So the actual amount of roof area, in fact, the roof goes over a porch there. We're extending another 8 feet. So I have to defer to the engineers. But my question is, if there was a typo or you needed clarification, because I've shown that, does this require another public hearing? Or is this something that is so minor that it can be addressed, the engineer and a report issued? I don't know the process. So that's really a question of timing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would suggest to the board that if the engineers are able to do this, we close the public hearing today, and then we reserve decision for the August 9th. I don't think it's going to require an additional public hearing. But one of the points that I think might be the delta on communication here is you have the 4 point from L.K. McLean, and the 4th point is the point that Kevin Peterman brings up with regard to the location of the existing stormwater leaching structures. It's addressed in number 5. I just, on my notes on the Rainer Group's June 28th submission, it is addressed as number 5. But what the Rainer Group says is if such leaching structures are encountered during proposed construction and they conflict with the proposed improvements, the leaching structures shall be removed. And I think what L.K. McLean's point is, if we know that there are structures there, we should find them and just make sure that there is no conflict. So I just think those are the 2 comments to reconcile. Is that right, Kevin?
That's exactly right. And, as you're preparing for the proposed addition, not knowing exactly what's in the ground there, I would really encourage the applicant to have some sort of private utility mark out done in that area, because if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know there's, dry wells down there, who knows what else could be down there? You could find a buried tank of some sort, or maybe an abandoned utility. Like, I think that would be wise, not only for the applicant, but I think it would also be wise, for the board to consider the implications of what it would have on the drainage system.
Generally, we do have a lockout beforehand. It doesn't always include drainage systems, but he felt it was adequate to say that there was one in the way, we would relocate it. So,
Yeah.
but we can address it.
Yeah. Perfect. I don't think that rises to the level of requiring another hearing. So if the board is satisfied with tonight, we can close the public hearing component, subject to the review and confirmation of the engineering reports being updated.
I'll get you guys together.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing subject to
Confirmation of the engineering reports.
confirmation of the engineering report. Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Can I just clarify something? These are not public hearings, they're public meetings.
Yeah, and they don't have to have an appearance again.
Because I don't advertise these.
Correct,
as public
correct.
hearings, So I just want to clarify that.
Yep, it's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second.
I did it, Dan, or maybe it was Marilyn. We were all talking at once.
Oh, Meadowmere. Meadowmere needs another 90 days.
Do you want me to propose it?
I was just
Oh, you have one,
looking for it.
Reed?
Yeah. I deem this one read?
You can, it's pretty short.
Okay, I'll read it. Make a resolution whereas Meadowview received a preliminary plan approval on January 13th of 2020. And whereas the statutory period for submission of a final plat is about to expire. And whereas the statutory period was last extended for 90 days on April 12, 2023. And whereas applicant has requested an additional extension of time. Now, therefore, it is resolved. The time for submission of the final plat is extended an additional 90 days effective July 12th, 2023. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. New one, 543 Spud LLC.
Bailey Larkin with Bennett Reading Offices at Shrewsbury, Wyndham, and Southampton. On behalf of the applicant, we received comments from InterScience as well as your village engineer, which is going to require some map revisions. And so obviously I'm going to ask the board to pull this over so we can address this. I think the most significant comment I just wanted to address really briefly was there was a question as to whether or not we would be seeking this land variance for the placement of the garage on this property. I think our team is working out a resolution where we're not going to need any sort of variance relief from that. We can address it through a revised site plan submission to this board rather than going to zoning board of appeals. I think that we can address most of these comments obviously through map revisions, and our team will get working on that to address that very thoroughly. But I would ask if it's possible to allow us to proceed with the application to the ARB on this project. That we're required to come to you first for site plan review, but if there's, while we're working on addressing the comments that have been raised, will be possible for us to proceed.
So I think you should let Rich and Kevin present their reports
Oh,
to
okay.
you, and then we can address that later.
Rich and Kevin, who wants to go first?
Kevin, why don't I go first?
Okay, great.
Sounds
Thank
good
you.
to me.
So this is a fairly large house being constructed. This is the property that we viewed not too long ago where there were rocks around the perimeter that were removed from the site. And then the ability to clear the property so they could get a sense of what the location for a structure would be. The house that's proposed to be constructed has a very large basement. It's probably a larger basement than I've seen on most homes. They're proposing a 9,988 square foot basement down below, which is exempt from GFA requirements. First floor is 4,393 square feet. Second floor is 2,549 square feet. Total square footage is 16,930. Although from a GFA perspective, they are within code and they're allowed to have 7,095 square feet. The GFA calculation on this house is 6,942. So they're compliant with it because basements don't count. The basement that they propose extends beyond the perimeter of the house. This one was a little tricky to get our arms around in terms of understanding exactly what was happening with the project because it is a little complicated. They're proposing drainage control. They propose a sunken tennis court, which I'll talk about in a moment, a swimming pool, patios, a garage on the property. And they propose to raise the grade in several areas of the property to accomplish this. The plan is before you because of site grading. It's within the village's jurisdiction for site plan approval because of changes in grade more than 600 cubic yards. And also it's within 400 feet of the landward edge of coastal erosion. So regarding the review of this property, this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot under zoning. You're in a R120 zoning district, and this lot is 82,000 square feet. Although this was part of a subdivision approved by the town of Southampton. So therefore, in your code for non-conforming lots, they're entitled to use the zoning setbacks that were in place at the time the subdivision was created. So they're using the R60 zoning setbacks for the placement of structures on the property. The structure is outside of any floodplain. Regarding setbacks, again, this was part of the tricky review of this because you have three elements of the house that are sticking above grade, and then a large part of it that's down below grade, connecting some of those above grade elements. The requirement for the setbacks for the principal structure is based upon the R60. You're required to have an 80-foot required front yard. They're at 80.1 feet, so they're compliant. A minimum of side yards setback for 1 yard of 25 feet. They're at 25.8. They're compliant there. a total required side yard setback of 65 feet. The plans don't specify what the total required side yard is for the principal structure, but it scales to be about 52 feet on the other side, so therefore it would be compliant in that regard if they didn't have the garage in the location that they have it. And a rear yard setback of 100 feet where it's set back at 124. The garage, Rhoda, can you put the plan up? Is that possible?
The architectural plans?
The survey, I'm sorry. Survey is probably the easiest. So the garage that's located to the east of the house and north of the tennis court, if you have the survey out on the table, you'll see it says proposed one-story frame garage. Can you just scroll down on that image a little? There you go. So between the garage and the house proper is basement space. You'll see a dashed line that's going through there. You'll see proposed edge of basement. You'll see, just go up a little bit with your arrow a little bit right in the middle of the drawing between the house and the garage, right? Yeah, just below that, you'll see proposed edge of basement. That dashed line is the edge of the basement that's down below. There's a parking court that sits above that, where they're going to park their vehicles on grade, and then the garage is the shaded area to the right of that, right there. There's a requirement in the village code that the setback for accessory structures is 5 feet from the principal structure. So this building either would need to be attached to the residence and be part of the principal structure, or it would have to be separated by 5 feet from the basement wall. I confirmed that with John Woodsman, the village building inspector, to actually figure out what was happening here. And he did confirm that it's going to be an accessory structure because it's got an independent foundation, but it's right next to it. There has to be a 5-foot separation. So that's one of the issues. If the garage wasn't there, the basement would comply. The house would comply from a setback point of view because you're about 52 feet away from the property line. But the placement of the garage causes a problem. There's another section of the code that also requires that accessory structures, which this is, are not allowed to be located within the total required side yard of the principal structure. So you would have to be able to add up the setback from the property line to the garage and the setback on the other side of the house on the western side, and that it would have to total 65 feet, and this doesn't. So there needs to be some adjustment here in terms of whether or not that's going to be attached to the house, and if it is, it has to total 65 feet. If it's not attached to the house, there has to be a separation, and then you also have to find a way to meet the 65 feet as well. So there needs to be some modification to that element of the house, or a request to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance because you can't approve it. It doesn't comply with the accessory structure setback requirements in the code. The tennis court, when you scroll down a little bit on the tennis court, you'll see that the tennis court is set back at a 31-foot setback. You have a requirement in the village code for 30 feet for tennis courts that are sunken by 4 feet. When I looked at the grading plan that they've provided for the project, which is on the Hollander landscape plans, you see top of wall elevations and bottom of wall elevations. And the topography in the area where the tennis court is proposed is elevation 15. And the surface grade of the tennis court is shown at elevation 12.5. So 12.5 from 15 is 2.5 feet, which means it's not 2.5 feet. It's not 4 feet below grade. So if you're not 4 feet below grade, then the setback for tennis courts is now 150% or 45 feet. So you can't use a 30-foot setback. So they have to make some adjustments to the tennis court. Now they could do it one of two ways. They could sink the tennis court a little bit further, or they could accomplish some regrading along the southern and eastern sides so that this way at the end of the construction, the finish grade shows that you're at a 4-foot depth of the tennis court from finished grade. The landscape plans that show elevations, you'll actually, if you zoom in a little bit further, you'll see that the top of the stairs on the right-hand side show, right in there shows 14.5 at elevation 15. They've got top of all elevations at 16.5 around the tennis court on the western side in an elevation where the grade is 15. So I think something is contemplated in terms of grading in this area, but it's not shown. And it's also, so if the grading plan needs to be examined, the tennis court elevation needs to be examined, because if they are going to bring in fill in that area to do that, then they need to recalculate their net export of fill for the site, because the current plan, because the extensive excavation that's required for the basement is looking at 2,611 cubic yards to be taken from the property. So I think they should probably re-examine the tennis court. I don't think it's an insurmountable fix. I think it's just, carefully looking at the grading around the tennis court, the elevations that they've proposed, and making sure that they can demonstrate that this tennis court is 4 feet below grade. Because right now it would look like you have a wall around here 1.5 feet above grade. You've got elevation 15 with a top of wall at 16.5. Well, that doesn't comply with the requirements of what the code is. So I think they need to take a little bit closer look at the tennis court and the site grading. From a coverage point of view, they need to demonstrate that they're not occupying more than 20% of the required rear yard with structures. That calculation is not on the survey. I don't think that's going to be a problem, but it's a number that should be on the survey. There's significant drainage proposed on the property. There's about 25 different dry wells proposed, 10 separate tributary areas identified in the drainage calculations. They're using 3 inches of storage. I'm going to let Kevin talk about that because that's really his in his court rather than mine. So I think we just want to be sure that given the extensiveness of the proposal, that we know that the drainage is going to be contained on site. Relative to that, if there is going to be regrading between the tennis court and the property line in order to make the tennis court comply with a 4-foot depth requirement to meet the 30-foot setback, as opposed to a 45-foot setback, we should make sure that the grades are now not going to be pitched towards the property to the east. And if they are, then they should take a look at what happens relative to drainage in that area. I think that these are all fixable issues for this project, but the devil's in the details. So hopefully my memo is helpful for the applicant. And if they have any questions, they should feel free to contact me. I know Kevin has taken a look at this and he's got a bunch of comments as well. So I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Great, thanks for all the detail.
Sure. Thanks, Rich.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, Kevin Peterman again. So this is quite a project that they have going on here. And it's pretty impressive, actually. I think the design looks really awesome. We do have a few comments. We have a comprehensive list of comments that I'm sure will be made available to the applicant. We would just like to walk through a few of those comments, maybe more of the big picture comments. First, we just wanted to kind of discuss the grading intent of the overall property. So we know that it's currently vacant site. We know what existing grades look like. And so now we're seeing this proposed residence. We see, a nice tennis court. We see a swimming pool. The plan that was submitted and our review really focused on the site plan provided by the Rayner Group. It doesn't paint a very solid picture of grades along the property line. So it leaves us to infer a little bit, which we don't like to do. So one of the things that we're going to request the applicant provide is a little bit more info on the existing grade around the property. As shown right now, it seems like we may be getting some sheet flow from the center of the property from the applicant's proposed improvements towards the outskirts of the property, which would suggest that sheet flow may be tributary to the neighboring properties, which is not something that is favorable. So that's kind of the first item we would ask the applicant to address. And second, piggybacking off of what Rich said about the tennis court, Village Code does specify that tennis court needs to be sunk in, among other options. Tennis court needs to be sunk 4 feet. So when we're looking at the grades, we see that they were trying to accomplish this, but it looks like there may be some typos in the grading design. So for instance, one of the things that Rich pointed out, I'll just circle back on it. On the right side of the stairs, we have a bottom of wall 12, top wall 16.5, and then we have a grade elevation at 14.5 at the top of the stairs. It seems like that 14.5 may be a typo. It seems like we may be missing an elevation 16 contour somewhere between the east side of the tennis court and the property line. And again, if there may be multiple ways to accomplish this, but if you do raise the grade there between the tennis court and the eastern property line, we would just ask that the applicant consider that we don't want sheet flow going to that neighbor to the east. So, you know, whether that is some additional catch basins, drainage inlets, or whether you're able to create a swale or berm, just something that you are able to show you're making an effort to prevent sheet flow onto the neighboring property. Moving on, we did not get any drainage details with this project. We did not get any dry well details. We did not get any catch basin details, no pipe trench details. So we're requesting that that information be submitted. Another thing that was a little bit concerning was the light wells. So if you were to zoom in right above the tennis court, we have that proposed light well. Really not too much information on that light well. So what type of material is going to be in that light well? Is it open to the environment above? Is it going to get rainwater in it? Is there going to be an inlet connected to a designated dry well? We would request a little bit more information as to how stormwater in that area will be handled. Something else to note on the light wells, it seems like the basement elevation is set at 7. And these light wells appear to be elevated at different levels. So we've got one at 5.5 just off the, I guess, the east side of the proposed 2-story residence. It's that little nook that has a, yep, right there, that has a 5.5. And then to the west side of the residence, we've got another light well, it seems, and that has a spot elevation of 10, it seems. So I don't know if the intent is to have these as walkout options. As to say, like, are you going to be able to walk out from the basement onto these light wells, or are they more window wells? Either way, I think drainage in those areas needs to be considered a little more closely. While we're talking about the basement, again, just north of the tennis court, we see that they have that parking area and they have a basement below the parking area. What is a little bit, I hesitate to say concerning because it may not be a concern, but at first glance and without more information, it is a bit concerning. So we have grade elevations there of about 19.5, and we have first floor elevation of the building at 16.5. So where does that put the top of the basement? Do you have a 9-foot high basement, 9.5-foot high basement? Where is the ceiling of your basement? And where is the top of your basement slab? And how much room does that really leave you to put in drainage structures under the ground? So we want to make sure that the bottom of those drainage structures that they're proposing there, and even the pipe that they're going to run in between finished grade and basement, we want to make sure there's not going to be any conflicts with the bottom of those drainage structures of the pipe, and that everything will be able to flow by gravity once everything is said and done. Moving on along, retaining walls are especially around the tennis court and the light wells. I don't believe we received any sort of retaining wall details. We also did not receive any sort of acoustic barrier details, and I feel like that is part of the village code for a tennis court. Not something I saw, maybe I missed it, but we would just ask that the applicant address that. Second to last thing here I wanted to talk about was just the earthwork calculations. So we can see from the scale of this plan that there is going to be a substantial amount of earthwork, as Rich mentioned, in the realm of 2,600 cubic yards. We checked the numbers and it seems reasonable, but it doesn't seem to include any excavation for drainage structures or sanitary structures. And as this project will likely require an exportation permit from the village building inspector, we would ask the applicant to just revisit that, address whether or not the excavation for the drainage structures and the sanitary structures were included in their calculations. And if not, that would be added to their earthwork calculations accordingly. Last thing we just wanted to mention is with the significant amount of work that's happening on this property and more than likely the amount of significant heavy traffic, construction traffic that'll be using this private road. And this may be a question for the board, would be if you would want to consider requiring the applicant as a condition of approval to be responsible to repair any damage incurred to the road by their construction operations. I think that would probably make all the neighbors happy. But that's beyond me, just a suggestion there. And I think that's pretty much all we have on this one.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Does the traffic to come to this project only come from Montauk Highway, downtown line and on Daniels? Or is it going to be going through Sagaponic? Or is that not a question that should be asked?
I couldn't answer that question. Maybe that's a question for the applicant. But from what I know, it seems like the construction traffic would be accessing the site based on a soil erosion plan that was submitted under separate cover through a SWIP report. Yeah, they'd be coming right through Daniels Lane on the private right of way, and then they'd have a construction entrance on site where their driveway is.
My question is keeping them out of the village of Sagaponic
We
with the
have
big heavy.
We had this question when we did the permit for the rock removal. That question was brought up. We're on a private road, so it would be the same, they'd be going down Daniels up and just directly through. That's the only way to get through.
Directly through where?
Town line
Town line
Town line road, either Town Line Road or
Sag Main Street?
Sag Main. No, I'm just so used to doing it. I'm sorry. Yes, Sag Main, and then go directly to the site. Yes.
So maybe it was,
West Wire going down Town Line
Yeah,
and then going down.
thinking about.
But I know this question came up when we were doing the permit, the site plan approval for the rock removal.
For the
as
rocks
well.
now, I'm remembering that.
Well, there's few speed bumps now that will be an issue with the large vehicles.
And there's also 2 construction projects currently ongoing on that same road too. One at the corner of Pheasant and Daniels that just, in fact, they're just putting the foundation currently, and then one a little further down that I think they're framed out and everything. And so I think the heavy stuff is done, but there is another similar construction site
Yeah.
right at the corner.
if there's a preferred route that the village trustees would like to see the heavy construction traffic, then maybe that's something that could be added as a condition of the approval. If there is.
Seems like such a big project that maybe not going by through the main part of the village and coming down Town Line where you have less businesses,
Yep.
no school, no
Right.
post office,
Right.
all that.
That's probably the way they would come anyways.
Good.
Because
But
that's
maybe
not-
it's something that should be made as a condition of the approval if that's a concern of the Board of Trustees.
We could do that. It's just, a little rough to enforce
Yeah, yeah.
off-site.
Take a swing at it.
Yeah, but we can try.
Right.
The construction manager could just make sure they notify all the contractors.
Right.
Exactly, I was gonna say, we have a good team, so
Good.
we're pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think everybody was happy how the rock removal went, it was very quick.
And it was quiet. They weren't going down the other way. Yes, so I had to remember the number. I had forgotten that's the same lot.
So where do we go from here?
So I'm sure they're gonna want time to respond to all the comments from everybody, so want to adjourn it for 30 days?
Well, we were hoping to reiterate what Bailey Larkin said, is that if possible, because the engineer luckily likes it too, but we'd like to start getting comments from the ARB.
But you do have to redesign the garage, so.
Well, it's actually,
Or
we actually have been talking about shortening the basement, which would get rid of that item. But we would like to at least start getting, this is not gonna be a one and done, as you can
Right.
imagine, with ARB, so it'd be really appreciated, at least if we could kickstart that. At least have their comments,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
No, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I mean,
We've done that before,
sure.
Thank you.
but it probably, whatever point they get to, it's always pending when
Correct.
the other stuff
Understood.
has to be done first.
I would assume to try to keep the process efficient, that any plan you'd present to the Architecture Review Board would be a revised plan that shows the shifting of the structures as needed.
Correct, either a shifting or a reduction of the base or something to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, just a plan that addresses the setback compliance. I think if you're gonna go talk to them, let's not talk about a plan that can't be built.
Agreed, and we don't want to go that way.
Yeah, okay,
We will not be applying for a variance for this,
Yeah.
so any plan that would be presented today or be zoning compliant.
good.
That's most efficient.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I should expect a redesign on that for the planning.
Yes, ma'am. No, for ARB, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And so they won't make this one, they would make progress.
Yeah, they're gonna address whatever they're gonna submit, I mean, I'm talking out loud now, just for the benefit of the applicant, whatever they're gonna submit to ARB, you're gonna resubmit to the
Correct.
planning board, the engineering and land planners comments before the next time this comes up 30 days from now. That's
That is
enough time. Okay. Good.
So we're gonna adjourn this till the August 9th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn this to August 9th.
So moved.
A second, I mean.
Sorry.
That's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
It's quite a plan. Wow.
Wow.
I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of it in this.
Actually, you're right, at all the other meetings, I'll get to see you because I monitor the other ones. Exactly. But you just said you weren't going to zoning, so that's one less.
No, we don't,
Yeah.
don't want to, we don't have to.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lisa's gonna do double duty on this when you report back.
I'll be
Our visions
recording
were-
both ways.
Bill, do you want
Richard.
Kevin and Rich?
Yeah. Thank you, Rich, and thank you, Kevin. Your reports are just fantastic, mind-boggling. I appreciate your, ability to see through all those details and really enjoy that. So I guess at the moment you're relieved and go back to coffee and donuts. I know that's.
Okay.
You know me well. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
So long.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Do we get to talk about this at all?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You could have chatted about it at the, with them?
Yeah.
I'm wondering about the ramifications of a basement edge on a pool edge.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Hey, they have the engineering. I mean, they're gonna build a dam probably.
So what I would say is, just only because they left, I don't want to have conversations when they've gone, we could have asked them when they were here. Let's do that the next meeting,
Okay.
raise that question.
I mean, is that really, I mean, I understand the
Well,
question.
really,
It's
The question would be to Rich or
Yeah,
Peter, not to them.
Yeah.
Do you remember the
Yeah.
one down on Sag Main Street? You were not on the board yet.
Yeah.
Lisa, you were, their basement was a wall of their pool, the foundation of the house. Oh, my
Wow.
God. Yeah,
Yeah.
but still there. And it's still there? Still
Which
there.
street? Which
Never
one?
flooded.
And didn't it have a pond on the other
Sag
side
Main
of
Street,
it?
yes.
And it had a pond on
One of the,
one side of it.
behind, what's his face there?
Yeah, Kellerman.
38 or
Yes.
there, back in that subdivision.
830 Sag Main?
Don't hold me to that, it's 8 something.
just takes more concrete.
Right, yeah.
Crazy.
I worked around a house in Amagansett that had 3-foot concrete walls, and he had no pool. I mean,
Armageddon. basically.
oh my gosh, I mean.
So,
concrete.
I think going forward with any kind of construction in Sagaponic, we should try to get them to stay away from the middle of the village as
Or
far as
traveling,
traveling goes.
Yeah.
I don't know, it depends on where it's going to be.
Like Ryan said, you can ask, but
Yeah, the construction.
who's gonna control that? Who's gonna monitor that?
Well, that's a good question. Who's monitoring the speeding?
The police.
Well, not very well.
Well,
The police will be monitoring the big trucks, I
I
guess.
don't know. That's the question I'm asking. If you put it as a condition, how do we?
Well,
If
we're gonna ask.
if some people comply, at least that would.
Yeah.
Less.
Not a reason not to
So
ask.
it's
for it.
self,
Yeah.
Well,
No, and specifically one like this, where the natural thing for them is to go up town line instead of weaving around through the village.
well, they can't, the kind of equipment they need can't get across Sag Ridge.
Right.
They can't go. I think the only way would be town line, but I also somewhat trust many years of Melissa whatever,
Devich.
she has come and always been on target with her projects. She doesn't seem to not do a good job of it, you know, going on her previous reputation. So let's, if we require it, I think it would be a smart idea because
Which one was Melissa? The blonde?
with the dress.
Yeah, next to us, yeah. They're all interested.
No, they all interested on.
That's the
Well,
minutes, we
this-
work on minutes the next go around.
I'm getting there. You'll have them all by next week.
Okay, yeah, because I just started to look at it, but I haven't been through what you have ready, so. So we got the police report, and it'd be nice if everybody looked at it, you know, because you're getting education. And at the next meeting, let's see what, if there's anything stands out. Carrie, I know you're used to looking at it.
I'm totally not prepared for it.
Oh, yeah,
First
no,
time
I
in,
know, but I think everybody ought to see it because we start to get a sense of what's going on here a little bit, as cryptic as it is. Yeah, we got a lot of letters in response to various things. The email note that I sent out, I think we got 20 responses. Priority list. Let's see, we didn't get anything from you in terms of what asked for.
I had a deadline and then
Oh.
I didn't see the email before.
Well, maybe you could get it to us before the next meeting.
yeah, I can.
Just,
No,
I handed mine in after the.
I
deadline.
know, I
Yeah,
saw
no, that's
that.
okay.
I could have done.
It's
I
always-
didn't know there was a
missed the
deadline.
email.
oh, boy.
Like, oh, I missed the deadline. I guess I
Yeah.
can't do it.
No,
Yes,
no,
I'll get it
that's,
to you
so
before.
that would be good for before the next meeting.
We have, I don't mean tons of time, but the paving cycle is usually October, so we're ahead of ourselves,
Yeah,
which is a
Right.
good quality.
exactly. Yeah, we got time to. Let's see, resolution to authorize an engagement letter for our auditors. I know it's in here.
So wait a minute, we're not gonna talk about the traffic calming and safety measures and people's ideas?
Well, that's right. You want to report on your emails with the
Yeah,
police chief?
so,
Sure.
I thought we were gonna list off what our projects and were for Sagaponic in the upcoming year or whatever. But anyway, as far as the 14 new proposed speed bumps go, I would like to see us take a slower look at this and go and do what the NTMP, the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program from Florida that you showed us.
So Collier County.
Yeah, they have 3 things that you should do, education, enforcement, and the engineering. And I think we should do a little more on education and a lot more on enforcement before we go digging up the roads to put in speed bumps. And I'm the kind of person who has to think things over and mull it and not be speedily deciding on certain things. And it's like 17 miles of Sagaponic, and we would end up having 22 speed bumps in Sagaponic, which it's a little scary in my eyes.
Well, we'd be about 30 short of what we need.
Yeah, so speed bump city, right?
Yeah,
But anyway, I wrote a letter to Bill and Chief and Carl, the sergeant, asking, following up on the meeting that we had with the police department. I'll read it to you. Thank you for meeting with us last week at the Sagaponic Village Hall. And following up, I have additional questions. As you know, we have some traffic issues here in Sag. We have added 8 or more new stop signs and 8 speed bumps. They have had some success. Speed bumps in my eyes are an extreme measure, and the board is now considering putting 14 more speed bumps in Sagaponic. Is it possible to get extra patrols for an hour or 2 in a couple of different spots with radar? And is there still a coke unit? I didn't mean to write COPE. It's CRU unit, meaning Community Response Unit. They go to sections where there are issues in a community and there are extra patrols. Also, the trade parade that avoids Montauk Highway is a problem at 7 a.m. and starting at 3 and 4 on Hedges, Daniels, and narrow lanes. Can we get the Sagaponic patrol car to issue tickets to those not stopping at the stop signs or use COPE, which should say CRU? I'm just trying to learn if more enforcement will help deter Sagaponic from adding 14 more obtrusive speed bumps, making it 22 speed bumps and 17 miles of road. I know the department is spread thin on manpower, but this wouldn't be a permanent measure. At the meeting, we didn't ask you this. Do you have any further suggestions on as how to quell the speeding and how to have motorists obey the stop signs here in Sagaponic? Thank you for your time, Carrie Crowley. And Chief Kiernan responded, hi, Carrie, all reasonable requests. We will start with having the 48 car hit the morning commute hard. Traffic skirting around the main road and into the neighborhoods is a problem all over town. We will try and get CRU, that's the Community Response Unit, to hit it as they move around town. We should also keep a close ear out for the traffic camera program as it expands around the state. Currently, only a few villages in Nassau have permission from the state to have stop sign cameras. Let's get our state reps to keep a lookout for this to be, look out for us to be a Suffolk village to try them. Enjoy the summer. I'm always around if you need anything. So
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I had read that they're finally legal in New York State and that they're implementing them in certain places, so.
so basically, I'm not against all speed bumps. I love the ones that are by the school. And in the future, I can foresee one, a bump or a table or whatever at Sag Store to slow people down there. And the other place I can foresee a possible speed bump is just before Sag Bridge, so that people don't fly over them while they're crabbing or something.
No, well, we have pedestrians.
Yeah, but I will say I'm planning to vote no on all 14.
Okay,
that are
no,
proposed.
I understand.
Uh,
I really appreciate the letter to him, because that's, that kind of thing, where you nudge him so we get, you know, better service is never, you know, unwarranted. It's a big town, and I know all over the town, if you read the papers in Southampton, they're going back and forth about one-way streets, restricted lanes, all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff like that. And the neighborhoods are really worked up about it. It's actually been going on from the 90s. But, you know, I don't see where the one car we have here is going to get to where we really want to be.
So maybe we
it's-
need to look into that more.
Well, I know the board, way back when I was mayor the last time, we looked at our own police, and
How long ago was that?
I have to
2005, 6, 7.
15 years, 16 years.
And then in between, I know I showed up for the hearings when Don had, who was it, the ex-chief from Southampton town, I think it was I assume you must have paid him something to come and. No, he didn't really. He was just doing it on the goodness of his heart. Wow.
Well, I'm not talking about getting our own village cop. I'm talking about paying more money to Southampton Town
That two
to
on
have
duty.
maybe 1.5 or however it could work.
Well, figure out how it happens.
Well, maybe you've opened the door with this person. Why don't you ask that question? That makes a lot of sense to me, that I know it's gonna cost something, and maybe we can look.
Well, they're very short on manpower,
Yeah.
so I don't know how that will work. But my main thing is I think we should go about this slowly and do a little homework and a little more enforcement. Maybe you have the traffic cops sit down on South Sag Main and take a note every day of the week at different times and see who is, you know, doing over the speed limit or whatever, and see if it is warranted by all those people that got their signatures down by the ocean. And things like that. I really would hate to see speed bumps on Sag Main,
I know,
except for at the store or the school.
right.
I think the store and the school, we all
stores.
agree with, some
And
days
even
at
at the store, you could put plantings.
just slow
Then
them
we'd have a
down.
lot to clean up instead of just the one
Right.
little sign that people keep running over, but
I carry duct tape in my car for that little sign. And some mornings I throw
fixed
it in my
one
bike
day. It's very
basket.
heavy.
It's-
The sign is
yeah.
very heavy.
But when the loops come off, sometimes you can do it with a railroad tie, but other times I use duct tape. But I mean, it's an early morning fix, and Karen at the post office finds it hysterical that we're aboard that Bill Barber moves it over sometimes, and you see me out there putting tape on it and trying to fix it. It's a mess. People, I think, are so determined in the morning and afternoon to get to wherever they want to be that it's just really dangerous in front of the store.
I think so too.
So I have some more comments on the road projects, but it's the road projects and more. I don't know if we want to take a couple of minutes to just quickly have you hear what they are.
Sure, yeah,
So my list has two spelling. It's not repaying. Repaying is good is what I wrote, and I meant repaving is good. And I think we definitely need a cell tower. Maybe it's hard to do and it costs a lot, but a cell tower is extremely in need in Sagaponic, in
It
my
would help the
eyes.
police
Yeah,
because they're not able to get a link up to give tickets.
yeah. And
which is sad.
I think that we need welcoming signs, maybe not at all the entrances to SAG, but we need to have something say, welcome to Sagaponic, please slow down and enjoy our beautiful and historic community established whenever 1656 or something, like down by the bridge, down on off Montauk Highway, up Sagaponic Road, maybe somewhere near Wainscott, but have a nice sign. And then parking down at Sag Main, I think should be parallel, diagonal, not perpendicular.
Gibson. You meant Gibson?
So, Gibson, I'm sorry, yeah. Like it used to be. It used to be diagonal, and there are a lot of long vehicles that park perpendicular, like everybody, just following suit. And they're too far out in the roadway. So if they could park diagonal, I think that would be.
We didn't have that lump of dirt right before
Well,
that
yeah, I don't know how
driveway.
that got there.
And that lump of dirt is making people line up with the lump of dirt and doing it the wrong way. Yeah, no, seriously, that dirt was not there.
Yeah,
And now it's so high, the mound, the grass can't be mowed by the town helpers.
then maybe we need a payloader to come scoop it out of there.
And put lines, you're saying, on the road?
Oh, I didn't say lines, no, just a sign saying park diagonal. And they would have to be facing northwest to do that.
They do stick out far in the road, that's true.
And then you have those 2 or 3 driveways, I guess it's 2 driveways right across of trucks coming in and out. And
yeah.
I just think
Well,
that's a minor issue.
The Gibson Farm, you're right, wasn't there originally, the Gibson Farm subdivision. That's true.
So that's my thought.
Okay. Well, God, back in the 90s, Skip, because of all the contention about roads clogged in the North Sea area, and the Shinnecock Hills area, and County Road 39, and the backlog in Watermill, et cetera, appointed somewhere between 60 and 80 local business people and activists to a transportation committee that met for 2 years. They spent a big budget for consultants. I was with that thing the whole way. A lot of the business guys dropped out early because they didn't think anything would get done. And they were absolutely right. There was no will to do anything about anything. And if you follow what's going on in Southampton now, North Sea and Shinnecock Hills has got the same traffic problems that we do, except they got them earlier than us by a number of years. And I personally feel responsible for people who, if you ride around now, there are tons of people biking, running, walking in the middle of the road. Can't fix stupid. And I think we need to do something. I think the police thing, people have, probably we should have Rich Warren here, because I remember him telling me some years ago about the road he's on and the traffic and the danger and the difficulty of getting out of driveways. I don't understand why the town, no one thought about having a speed table before, because they seem pretty common in neighborhoods in Florida. And those neighborhoods are very quiet. You know, driving up to Patchogue, Jennings Avenue, and those horrible speed bumps they put in there, 5 inches high and very short, so you could just barely get over. I don't know how somebody with a sports car gets over, but they
Very
must.
carefully.
Very carefully. That road was dead quiet. I mean, there was absolutely no traffic on it, and I'm not suggesting something that drastic. The speed tables we put in are supposedly tuned to 25 miles an hour. Our speed limit, they're not all the same, but I think I made comments to the engineer, and I think the last 4 they put in are much more to the specification than the first couple. The ones for the school are exactly right. The ones in the hedges are the ones that are out of whack a bit. They're a little taller than they should be in terms of the specification on it. But the whole thing with police are there. The first objective is crime. And then they do all this, what for most policemen, I think is considered petty stuff, which is important to us, but I don't think it's their real priority. I think they get brownie points for, you know, getting drunk drivers and driverless people, people without driver's licenses, stuff like that. Some other more criminal type of behavior.
Well, we don't have crime.
I know. And so what I'm getting at is that the speed bump, it targets the speed, which is what we're after. And I know, I don't like them. Okay, last night I went to a birthday party and I had a chance to talk with our eldest resident who says she walks 2 to 4 miles a day. You know who she is.
Yes,
And
I read about her all the
she
time.
said that she would love to have speed bumps. She finds some of the speeds going by, people go at a terrifying speed past her.
She's right.
I talked with, what?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. It's like,
And she's very steady footed, generally
Yeah.
speaking, but some days she looks like she's slightly listing. She's probably just getting tired at mile 4.
Right.
And,
4
and,
miles.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and some days she's by herself, other days she's with family members,
Yeah.
but, she's totally right. And she walks Daniels pretty continually.
Yeah. So let
so
me
she
rattle
wants
on.
speed bumps.
Hmm?
She wants speed bumps.
Yeah.
Well, that's saying a lot because she's
And
somebody.
I spoke with a number of people. I don't know names. I mean, Fred and Eileen Wilford, I thought Fred would probably not like speed bumps. And he said, I don't like them, but you need them. He says, wherever you have them, people will slow down. And I talked with, oh gosh, Linda Bird Frankie. She says, I love those things. And she doesn't have any on her road. You're never going to put one on her road. But
Such a narrow road.
yeah,
She probably knows that.
yeah. But she was happy with them. Trying to think, I talked to, was able to, Dean Foster. He approached me and he wrote a letter, which surprised me because I thought he would be somebody dead against him. And he said, you got to put one just south of, you know, where the deer fence is. He says they go by Merrily Stand. The other day, I was driving actually at the speed limit Usually I'm over at some. There was a truck behind me and somebody pulled out and passed it at blazing speed right by Mary Lee's stand. The people are just nuts.
Well, I agree with all that, but
I mean, we
I'm
have a
thinking
lot of
it's a
support.
minimum amount of people doing that as to the majority of people living inside. What do you think about more education and a little more
I think
enforcement?
it's great, but I sent an email out. We got 20.
I think that was great.
Got 20 responses. 18 of them said they wanted more speed bumps. 2 people were against them.
Well, I know a lot of people who don't want them, but they're not gonna write letters. They're called locals.
Yeah, well, they ought to get in touch with us somehow.
Well, maybe you have
Because,
to tell them to.
And they live
call
in the
you.
village. That's the other thing, that the people in the village are pro doing it. Anyway,
Well, we were all elected to do work for the village here.
right.
And that's the people we want to hear from. I know this sounds like elementary school, but did we ever consider a way of polling all the email addresses and saying, could you just please give us your opinion in a yes or a no?
How many
Is that
emails, how
illegal
many
to do,
email
Brian?
addresses
No,
do
you
we
can't.
have?
About 700,
You
That's
said, how
700
many
emails.
got my notes from the mayor?
all of them.
700, and we only got 20 responses.
Let me bring that down to 650. It's just shy of 700. But it's about 650 is a comfortable, yes.
But is it legal for us, Brian, because I'm just thinking, to take what I'm calling a straw vote and call it that? We just really want, because that's a pretty big number, and if we only heard from 20, we want to hear from a lot of people, right?
I asked in the email to weigh in on it.
Yeah.
And that's what we got. Most people they don't live here, their minds aren't here, and they are part of the problem,
Mhm.
really. You know,
Could we,
I-
Lisa?
Yeah, we could send out another. email.
And if we sent another email out, would we mention that 14 more, besides the 8 that we have, equaling 22, are possibly going to occur in the village? Or
If
do
you
we leave
read
that
the-
out?
If you read the literature on how those things are used, and you've seen them used in Florida, they are very close together. But it all relates to what speed you're trying to get, what you're trying to accomplish with it. And on Narrow Lane East, my house, you could put 3 more in, and you would control the speed more. Is it necessary? Unless somebody else petitions for it, I'm not going to bring it up, because the 2 that are put in, I hear the noise from it, and I like every sound, because I know it slowed people down. So I don't object to it. And the other ones down near Tommy's house, he wanted it. But to put it in the middle of the street, there's a house with children, and I'd love to hear from them, because I'm not going to put it in front of their house, because then you get a noise complaint. That's why some of the placements are by a deer fence, because you don't want the noise complaint. You
Well,
want
do you think it's a minority of people that are creating these problems for us? Or do you think like the trade parade, which is a lot?
It's
even
a
though-
combination, yeah. Okay, so Lewis Mizell wrote a letter some time ago to the East Hampton Star. And so I called him up. I thought, why didn't you talk to me? You're writing a letter about it.
What was his letter? I didn't read it.
That he was ticked off with the speed
Oh.
table on Edges Lane.
Okay.
And Santa Clara School, we thought it was ridiculous.
It was wrong. We put
Well,
the
he
first
doesn't have
five.
any children there. And
Did you send that to us? Maybe you have it.
No, I didn't even
It was
see
in
it.
the
It was
paper.
at East Hampton Star.
Okay.
so I talked to him, and I thought he's a reasonable guy. He is. I like him. But he said he doesn't like any stop signs. He doesn't like any speed bumps. And he didn't say it, but I'm sure he speeds. And the fact of the matter is, I thought about it. He lives on the end of a dead end road.
Will.
So he has no
Cul-de-sac.
traffic.
Yeah.
He has
He
no
has no
grandkids.
traffic.
And he's 80 years old, and all he does is drive his car.
This is Elliot.
No,
this
Elliott's
is
brother.
Lewis.
Oh,
The
Lewis.
older
Which
brother.
one's on
He's
board?
80.
Elliot is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lewis is not on. the
I don't
board.
think I know Lewis.
Yeah,
He
he's a,
has like an
art
artsy
dealer.
gallery on Wilkes Lane, those.
That
Oh,
was-
statues.
he has the
just a-
statues?
yeah,
Yes.
Oh.
yeah, the wildlife fund.
Yeah, I thought
just
that
had-
was Elliot.
And so then I ran into his neighbor who screamed at me for a while. And it was kind of interesting because I just listened. I didn't argue. Just go ahead. And at the end of it, she got a little reasonable and said, well, and she noticed this, that there was a difference between the speed bump on hedges that she went over and the ones on Narrow Lane East. And she said, if those were like the one on Narrow Lane East, I wouldn't complain.
The Daniels Lane one is nice too.
Daniel's Lane
Yeah,
one is
but
nicer
they
than
were,
Hedges.
after I measured them and I told the engineer, I said, these are supposed to be 3 inches and you're doing between various 4 and 5 inches. So
On
you're another
hedges?
inch and a half taller.
Yeah, I
And
know they're different, but I don't know what the
Yeah, the
specifications are.
You know, so I think on the next 4, he made a point of telling the guy, he said, this is what they're looking for and just don't put asphalt in. Yeah.
Well, it was like the lines guy on Hedges too. Did
Yeah.
the same things. The lines were for the pedestrian corridor, we'll call it, or whatever. Were off on Hedges. And then the next road, after we complained about that, it got corrected.
Which was Daniels.
Well, they realize somebody's watching.
Yeah, exactly. And, but that is Jim Peterman's job to watch that it's
Right.
completed. The fact that we didn't catch it before we approved the final end, sometimes you have to look at something to figure out what's wrong with it. But can we go back to the idea of the 650-ish people, giving them something that they literally, I don't know how to do these things on a computer.
Answer yes or no.
Answer yes or no, simple as you can be. To
Just
get
be really
the
clear that it's not a vote, right? It's just a poll.
poll, but it has to be worded so we don't get in trouble that it's not a vote, but
Yeah.
you know. That's your department to
Yeah.
figure out how not to get us in trouble.
Oh, what would the survey say?
What?
Are you in favor of?
We have this amount of speed bumps, give them some general information as to what we're doing, right?
Before we do that, I think we need to educate them first and do enforcement.
But
More
it's not the
enforcement.
people in our village who are the
Well,
ones who are
That's the other
speeding.
thing, yeah.
So they're not the ones who need the education.
Well, if they go slower or are going slow, the people behind them will be going slower.
Right.
Hopefully, unless they pass them on a double line and go 80.
Which
Until
is
the
they
next
do.
crossroads comes. But that's the minimal, that's a minimum amount of people. That's not the majority, I don't think.
That's what you.
I
put in
don't
your
know.
letter.
I don't know. But I mean,
Well, I'm sure everyone at the table has had it happen once this summer. I've had it happen twice.
Pass you.
Yes, once by your house, right after I finished the
On
stop
my
sign.
house. Like sometimes when I'm going to make a left in my driveway, that's like a perfect spot. Now with the stop sign, no, but before it was a perfect spot somehow, like.
Coming over the bridge, they're doing it past you now, down by Michael Davis's building, we'll call it. And then I had it happen once on Daniels.
Well, I get a very competitive streak in me and I go in the middle of the road and I don't let them pass.
Oh, dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, I hope the policeman's not around. Like, there's no way he's going by me.
We've had a really productive conversation. Can we next week maybe all think about
what you want to say in the email?
and what we would say in this email and what we would try to accomplish by educating them in this email and work a little on that as well as what else we're working on.
Sure.
Education never hurts.
Yep.
And I love the fact that the cops seem more receptive. I think that's totally positive.
And that he mentioned that maybe our village would be the one that tried out.
Yeah,
theirs.
I think that would be awesome if we could be a test spot. I don't know how that works.
That'd be great. But then
God,
we
I'll
all
be in
have to-
jail.
Then we all have to obey
No,
them.
I do stop at the stop signs, but I have a little bit of a lead foot when nobody's around.
Let's move on. We need to approve the Sadie and
You
Partners.
can do that next week, Bill, but that's.
Let's do it now. get it-
Well, then you won't have anything on your agenda for next week. but
That's all right.
fine, too.
We'll argue about it.
No, we will make progress on our fall decisions somehow. Repaving still has to be discussed.
Yeah, I didn't know. Are we done with repaving?
No,
No,
not for the moment.
but there's other, I mean, we also.
No, I mean tonight to discuss it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Are we going to discuss it or we're skipping over
What else is it to discuss?
it? Repaving?
Well, Marilyn, what has, you're gonna put in your
Yeah,
road?
we'll have Marilyn's gonna weigh in.
I'm gonna weigh in.
Oh, okay.
So that,
And did Bill send something?
Yes.
yes,
Oh,
You
was-
did.
did he send it?
I sent it to all of you in the packets.
Oh, in the packets.
Yeah, under old business, the last.
Okay.
four
I saw
pages.
that.
Okay.
I think the repaving should be very easy to sew up next week because we've done a lot regulate, so we're getting to a point where we're down to fewer roads to look at.
Oh, that's true, yeah,
Oh, at one point it was terrifying how many roads we had to look at.
right.
Oh, you fixed it for me.
Got a lot of the confidence.
So,
Okay, I'll make a proposal to approve the contract with our auditors.
Resolution authorizing you to sign the contract.
Is there,
I'll second it.
Thank you.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, get that off the agenda. So we need to read some of the minutes before the next meeting.
Mhm.
And whole bunch of financial stuff somewhere to look at.
The good news is that they're having a yard sale over at Falcone's. So
What's Falcone's?
that's our outstanding tax payments for the past 3 years. So
So,
Oh, I wasn't putting it together.
if they have good stuff,
I haven't been there. I just had did the yard sale.
When is the yard sale?
These tax collections,
Yeah.
there's one property that hasn't paid, and it's the property at the end of Crestview Lane. Falcone is one that owns it.
Oh, at the far
At
end?
the far end.
oh,
And they have a dumpster out. They've been cleaning. I rode my bike down there.
Okay,
So they're having a yard
so
sale?
that means there's gotta be some movement on the sale of that property.
Selling the property, they did reduce the price.
I would assume someone somebody's got it, so. hopefully
When's
we'll-
the yard sale? Just curious.
I think it's this weekend.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know.
It's the most expensive.
It was one of the most expensive. She's right.
So
This
it's-
might be just worth seeing.
Yeah.
And I walked through that house, well, it was under construction for half a lifetime. Probably my youngest grandson is older, you know, I mean, it was a building permit when we formed the village, and how long did it hang?
It's one of the last
10,
ones.
15 years? I don't know, it was forever.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's amazing, that they could potentially pay us.
Bill's thing here. It's in an email. It's the last 4 pages.
One. Oh, here it is. Thank you.
he wants speed bumps by his house,
Yeah. I know.
Bill Barber.
Yes.
I agree,
Well, after a year, maybe.
but all the children are. I don't want to be the guy who's mayor with blood on the pavement.
Don't even think
I
such a
want to do
thought.
whatever is possible to prevent that. So I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I forgot to ask the audience if she wanted to speak.
I don't want to hear any.